Lance, me, Henry, if you I asked it, and then flat out Maurice said, winner of this fight, WBC champion, period. It wasn't franchise, he said he was a WBC champion. So I said, so no franchise bullshit. He said, yes, he's a WBC champion. I said, what about Devin? And then he said, Devin Haney got the title because he listed all these reasons why. But he said, David Lopez is the WBC champion. And he repeated it over and over.
It made no sense at all.
Right, it does make sense, but I mean, the WBA has a million fucking champions. I mean, that's the way they are.
Yeah, but it's just so odd.
Like he asked me when I asked the question, he said, what belt does Lopez? Does David that he has a belt to 135? Hogan's belt to
I was just going to say, WBA. You know, I was about to do it, but I know you can handle it. I mean, it's kind of cool Mauricio being crooked, you know, and I like the guy. He's like, these three kids are all hot. How do I get 3% of each? Ryan interim, Devin regular belt, few people, and voila, 3%.
I should walk up there when they're doing it. See what he says.
It's like state law.
Having to fight these mandatory challenges and do as he's told, just to give it up now. That's so the general feeling is that he will defend himself against the
I'm hearing it's September 4th.
2014.
For when Joshua returns. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ed. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you next weekend. Look forward to it. All right. Thank you. Bye, bye, fans. Thank you.
Yeah.
Still look like the timing of the order sort of came at quite a bad time in the mindset of Anthony Joshua, which was like, you know, he was pretty pissed off that the Fury fight wasn't happening. So, and then it's like, okay, well, sorry about that. It's a new fight, you know, and it's like, for years and years, obviously, when there's a mandatory fight, the purse split is predetermined. So, there's not a lot of room for negotiation. You know, they've got two there, split with the IBF, you can beat them. When he fought for Beckman, same thing. When he fought, same thing. You know, that person split is predetermined. So, and he's never had, and he's not the kind of fighter that wants to win. He's never just had kind of like a routine, you know, even when he's learned, which he actually still learns. But after he they said, Eduleta, he fights Fuller. And that was his, you know, his first defense of the unified championship. And then 8 days out, Fuller pulled out. And we tried to look for another opponent. The idea said, no, you've got to go down the list. It's Carlos Tucker. Next fight, he unified against Parker. And we get another letter. You've got to fight for Beckman. That was 3 or 4 years ago. Beckman was, you know, he's still dangerous for recently, we saw, but he was very truly dangerous. Okay, no problem, we'll do that. Then he had a voluntary.
And I put my ring on, right, so join Miami.
And he got beat, and he got Andy again. And then he got another letter. He said, you've now got to fight Fuller again. Okay, you know, and then he went to fight Fury. That fell through. And he got another letter. And he got to fight Usyk. If you can't keep hoping the bet, like at some point, you just go around and go, you know, I'm going to do what I want to do. So, it's kind of like how the conversation went about a week ago, but over time, you know, I think he realises that he doesn't want to go. And I think that he's very proud. And I feel like he's very proud, you know, he wants to take on all. And I think part of him thinks beating Alexander Usyk is an incredible name on the resume. You know, Usyk is a pound-for-pound top fighter. He's an undisputed cruiserweight world champion. You know, and that again just strengthens the resume. And I know I always go on, but when you go, you know, Klitschko, Shaquem, Parker, Popovich, Ruiz, Usyk. That's the run. You know, it's pretty good run. Like there's no gimmies in it. So yeah, I feel like as long as the deal goes smoothly and no one takes the piss and no one tries to be better, then I think that fight is quite automatic. And the way that the conversation has been going about Cressy, who I've worked with for the last 3 fights anyway, has been sensible. So as long as everyone's sensible, I think that's the fight. I think it's a very good fight. It's not a jury fight, which is the one we want. It's still a very good fight.
Eddie, I'm sorry, could I just ask you one thing about the fight tonight then? One other thing. You know, before the Lomachenko-Lopez fight, we were, Lance and myself, I think Dan Rayfield, there was like 4 or 5 guys on talking to Mauricio, and he said, if you remember, Lance, very specifically, the winner of this fight is the WBC champion. And we quizzed him several times, and it wasn't franchise champion. He said the winner of this fight is the WBC champion. So I guess, you know, do you look at Lopez as the WBC champion? I mean,
well, he's the WBC franchise champion, yeah.
So he
recognised Teofimo Lopez as the undisputed champion. So he should be, by the way, because he's tremendous. I mean, he beat the pound for pound, you know, top 3, you know, and he should be the undisputed champion. But on paper, he's not. I mean, but that's why I was saying to Michelle, when Canelo, when Canelo boxed Callum Smith, we asked for the WBC belt to go on the line. And there was a problem because Yildirim was mandated to fight for it, okay? So I think that there was an opportunity there to make that fight for the franchise belt. Canelo didn't want that because he knew he couldn't be undisputed if he won the franchise belt. So he said, look, get me that, let's fight him quickly, Yildirim, so I can get hold of the WBC world title, not the franchise. I mean, the whole thing's absolutely ridiculous. I can't even believe we're living in a world where we're actually discussing this. You know.
And my second question on that then is, given what happened, you know, Bob's assurances to you about Fury, no problem on the arbitration, does that make it more difficult for you to do business with him, and would that be harder to get a Lopez fight done?
Bob's actually quite good in that respect because I think with Bob, you could literally burn down his house, and I think he'd make a deal with you the next morning for something else. You know what I mean? Like, which I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah.
But that is basically the situation. And,
yeah.
And I actually love Bob for that.
Right.
Because I could give this interview with you now, and I could slag off Bob Aaron for an hour, right? And he would still phone me tomorrow to make a deal where other people would go, I'm not working with him anymore, right. Which is actually really bad for the sport. So it's, for all Bob's faults, that's actually one of his good points. Okay. So I think in that respect, I mean, I don't know what's happening with Teofimo with top ranking. Is there a legal issue around the contract because of what happened or whatever? But you know, the great thing about, like I said, normally it's a network issue that will give you the excuse. With this, it's like, this is how it's going to be. Teofimo, here is your offer to fight Devin Haney. And if you also want to entertain that on ESPN, no problem at all. So in that respect, how can you have a conversation about it? It's a bit like Canelo and Plant, really. So here's the design offer. What's the Fox offer? And let's just talk and see where it makes sense.
I think some people think that he would not take that risk because he'd rather put the in there against Taylor in a pay-per-view.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But that's the problem with boxing, is he's doing that because for the benefit of Top Rank and the network instead of the fighter. Yeah. So, but again, if Teofimo wanted that fight, then there's nothing we can do about it. But if he wanted, I think we could pay him a lot more to fight Devin Haney than they would pay him to fight Josh Taylor. But that is also an excellent fight. So if they made that fight, you can't really complain. But you know.
As Haney's promoter, I'm interested in your 2 different thoughts. Through 8 rounds, you're looking at this guy, and he does look like the second coming of Floyd Mayweather. And then he gets hit. What was the 2, polar opposite thoughts that were running through Eddie Hearn at that point?
A little bit shocked because he took some big shots in the fight. Like when they traded up left hooks and stuff like that earlier on, he took some big shots, and I was actually thinking, wow, he's got a good chin, this kid, because Linares can really punch. It was a weird one. I watched it back. It was like, he took one. It was a big right hand, but he wasn't actually looked like he wasn't expecting the shot because he thought he might, he's out of range or Linares wasn't coming. And his legs buckled a little bit. He walked forward to the ropes. I saw him on the store. I could see him right there, and he was kind of smiling and laughing. Probably like, I think a young kid probably felt quite embarrassed. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, shit. And he watched up and watched it back while his dad was talking to him. But he was okay. I mean, I do think it's amazing that it's such an unbelievable talking point. Like, he got buzzed by Jorge Linares. You know, I've had Linares in 4 fights, right? Anthony Ferrall got dropped. Kevin Mitchell got dropped and got stopped in that fight. Luke Campbell got dropped in that fight. He punches very, very hard. And he got better in the fight than I was. Because, and that, I thought it was interesting what Devin said about how he carried his power late. And the reason is because he was tremendously fit and he had a great training camp and he threw everything into this fight. Right. Because he knew this was like my last chance.
And you wanted your guy to go through some adversity at 22, right?
But
I mean, when it's a cakewalk after cakewalk, yeah.
You know, and he won't do that again. I've been wanting Devin to be a little bit more exciting because I felt like when he boxed Gamboa, you know, Gamboa didn't want to engage, and I knew this would be a much better fight because Linares was coming to win. But I felt that if you watch it back from like 8 or 9 rounds, next thing, Devin's like walking him down. He's putting his head on his head, and he's trying to sort of macho him out, trade more, and like, because I think he wanted to stop him, and I think he felt that his best chance now was to step on the gas and try and stop him. But in doing that, he got reckless and he got caught, and you know, he'll learn from that because it could have been a lot worse.
How's it feel to break the streak? And, Robert
Yeah,
Diaz was
really
saying
good,
it's going to be 5-0.
Yeah, because Robert Diaz and Oscar De La Hoya hardly ever mention it. You know, so, now I've got a lot of respect for Benavidez. Like, he's a brilliant fighter. Mitchell nearly had him actually. I mean, if you watch the Kevin Mitchell fight, that was a tremendous fight. Mitchell dropped him, and you know, he beat Crawler. The first fight was quite close, but the second fight was a big win for Linares. And the Campbell fight was quite close as well. But he's technically great, smart, fast, can punch. I think he'll probably retire actually, but I'd actually quite like to see him carry on fighting because he's never in a bad fight. You know.
Are there any updates on the Canelo and Plant fight?
No, not really. A few conversations. I think, like I said earlier, I think it's quite a straightforward situation of, you know, here's the DAZN offer, here's the Fox offer. Let's talk and see. I think this free agency, you know, network free agency is quite interesting. I mean, I don't advise it to people who aren't draws. Like, but if you are a huge draw, that free agent sort of ability to roam is a really nice thing to have because you're not handcuffed to make any kind of specific fight. So we want to put it on DAZN, and DAZN will put up a hell of a lot of money for that fight. But also we understand, you know, if Heyman turns around to Plant and says, effectively, not in these words, but you can only do this fight on Fox, then, and the offer's not right, I don't know what happens then. But hopefully we can just get together and, you know, if Caleb Plant wants to fight, which I presume he does, and obviously it's a huge opportunity for him financially and in terms of the legacy, hopefully everyone just, you know.
It seems like you'd want to get it done in June because it has to start camping.
Yeah. September the 11th is like the date, and yeah, we got the 11th and the 18th, and it can't. I believe the Mexican Independence Day is on a Wednesday. Yeah, so it's like another one, like Cinco de Mayo, but 16.
And Plant said he wanted $10 million. Do you think that's, you know, a fair number, considering, you know, Jacob? I think Kovalev made 12, and I think Jacob's made 12. So what do you think 10 is a good number?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a different world then.
Yeah,
You know, but you know, I think that I don't want to comment on the number, but he is part of the making of an undisputed fight. So he has great leverage. He's a good fighter. He deserves to be paid, you know, very well for this fight. I'm sure he will be. And, you know, hopefully it's about more than just money. Hopefully he believes he can win and become undisputed.
Does this quote unquote
Competitive fight that Saunders was? You think?
I think Saunders is the toughest fight for Canelo because of the style. You know, and Caleb's, you know, they're not dissimilar, Plant and Saunders. I mean, Saunders, in my opinion, is trickier and more elusive, but Plant might be a bit stronger. You know, might punch a little bit harder. But I always felt that Saunders was the trickiest fight for Canelo at 168. Yeah, he just said to me, go ahead, you know, go ahead and get this done. Obviously Eddie Reynoso when I first started working with Canelo, the relationship was really me and Eddie Reynoso. You know, that was what came together, and I didn't know Canelo too well. You know, we respected each other, but over the last 3 fights, we've become, you know, dare I say, friends. I think. You know, I mean, I have a huge amount of respect for him. I love his work ethic. He's hilarious, as you guys are starting to see, and that is something that we've really made an effort to showcase, because you've got this guy who's pound for pound #1, who is cheeky, funny, ballsy, like, you know, and he's so great to be around. I want you guys to see it. So it's all about, I just feel that maybe because our team is English, he's having to speak English, or he's not having to, but he's choosing to speak English. And people love that. People love to see it, and they don't realise how good his English is. I mean, this is a guy, it's all self-taught, just picking up, you know, from people. And I think before, if he's talking to, I don't know, Robert Diaz or Eric Gomez, you know, he's speaking in Spanish. So you don't get to see that, but I think he's really enjoying himself. And I think he's really happy, and he's clearly happy with our relationship, and it's an honour to represent him. And, you know, unfortunately, those 3 fights that I worked, you know, one was Callum Smith, who I represented. The other one was Billy Joe Saunders, that I represented. And the other one was Yildirim, which he was never going to lose. So I haven't yet had the chance to have my heart and sleeve moment with Canelo, which is why I want to make the plant fight so much, because I can go in with just one guy in the race, and we can really make history together, and that's what I love more than anything. So we can go in there and we can celebrate as a team, which is very difficult when you've got 2 guys in a fight.
Where does he want to fight that fight at? If, you know, does he care? Does he have, you know, he said he wanted to fight in England. Yeah, where?
Plum, you're talking about?
Yeah, Plum.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, probably a Vegas fight. I mean, I just feel that he doesn't realise how big he is in the UK. Like, he's now boxed 2 Brits in the last 6 months, and the numbers, you know, on the zone in the UK were huge for that fight. It's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And they're, you know, they've got an introductory price of £1.99, right, which is $3 to watch that fight. So everyone was just piling in watching, and Canelo is a superstar in Britain, and I think he'd be really shocked when he comes. He's going to come over soon, but he'll be really shocked at his popularity there. And I'd love to do a fight in the UK. I'd love to take him to the Middle East. I'd love to take him to Japan. I'd love to do a fight in Guadalajara. I mean, imagine that. What that, you know, probably wouldn't be taking as much money on the gate.
Well, what about Mexico City? Because that's
yeah.
a place that you can do.
Yeah,
and, you
but
know,
anywhere like that. I mean, that's historic moments. That is, you know, and that's why I'd love to do stuff like that, because I just think that just like one thing we found, like, British fans are very passionate. Mexican fans are
Crazy.
potentially on another level.
you remember? I don't know if you remember, but the Greg Haugen fought Julio Cesar Chavez with 130,000 people. I was at that fight. That was like that was scary.
Yeah.
And when he said the Tijuana taxi drivers, that was pretty tough. But have you ever talked to him about fighting in an outdoor stadium like that and trying to set a record?
Not really. I mean, what I've learned that he loves the big shows, and he's like, you know, he's so he's almost like a young boy sometimes, you know, when they experience something for the first time. Like, he comes into the change room after the fight, and he's like, that was you know, and they're looking at pictures, they're watching the ring walk back, and they're, you know, he absolutely loves that experience and that kind of attention.
Sure.
And not attention, but more like attention to detail.
Right.
And I think that's why I like to push the boundaries, and that's why I think we should turn around and say, how about here? How about here? I think after Undisputed, the strategy should be to box in as many different territories as possible, because what else is there for him to do? Right. And I said to him, how long do you want to fight for? He said 7 years. You know, and he's getting better and better. You know, and he's just. I spoke to him. Obviously, he got married and he's away now on honeymoon, I think. And I spoke to him probably a week ago. I said, I hope you're having a good rest. And he's just like, I just want to fight again. You know? This is a really fascinating stage of activity. You You know, like for a pound for pound star, and one of the, or if not the biggest star in the sport, I really feel like him and AJ, you know, the two biggest stars, to fight so frequently is really quite unusual.
Yeah.
And I look at AJ, who's been fighting twice a year for a long time, and even probably less during the pandemic. And I actually feel that, you know, it would help him as well to improve and get momentum boxing 4 times a year.
What do you think of, you know, Canelo signed that record deal with DAZN, right? And he has that deal made and then he loses it through no fault of his own, right? You could see him being bitter, but he's not, right? And I wonder, like, what's in his mind that you know of about, you know, like how he does business deals? Because obviously he's not going to do a deal with Oscar again, but DAZN seemed like it didn't bother him.
Yeah, I think it took a bit of time, you know, to sort of, for everyone to feel comfortable again. I think that one thing I've learned about Canelo is he likes to do good business and honest business. And if a deal is right and if he trusts the people, I think that when a relationship breaks down like his did with Golden Boy, becomes a trust issue. It's a bit like having a normal relationship with a female or a man where you split up and something might have happened, something went wrong, and your next relationship, you don't trust that person because of what happened in the past. So there's definitely an element of that, and it's always difficult to start a relationship when that's happened in the past. So it's taken a little bit of time for him to maybe, you know, get comfortable with DAZN again and us, and now I think he trusts us. And that's the nicest feeling in a relationship.
Sure.
With a fighter or with a man or a woman, if you're in a relationship where everybody trusts everyone and you're happy. And that's when you have the best relationship with a fighter, is when the fighter says to you, you're the man, right? So you do, I trust you. I put my career in your hands. That's an incredible responsibility to have in a sport like this. And that's when I get most motivated, because I won't let you down in that situation, because you've entrusted me to handle your career. And in Canelo's case, it's the career of pound for pound number one.
Right.
You spoke about this relationship piece, and then also tied onto the free agent piece. How do you create this relationship with some of these quote unquote free agent boxers that you spoke about earlier?
It's kind of like, I know in America you can't be a promoter and an advisor. It's illegal under the Muhammad Ali Act. But sometimes as a promoter, I feel like promoters work really more for a network than they do for a fighter. So in this instance, it's a really interesting dynamic where, and it's a bit like, I think the great thing about DAZN is they're not hell-bent on, you know, they've not been tainted by the green-eyed boxing brush, you know, where people are miserable and envious and they want to block things and stop things from happening. They've not been around boxing long enough to do that. Maybe they'll be like that in 20 years. You know?
Right.
But at the moment they're fresh, and they're almost like, I feel like that free agency thing, like I said, like it's a really interesting position for a fighter to be in.
Sure.
If you think that, imagine if Terence Crawford was a free agent, right? Don't you think that the Errol Spence fight would have happened by now, or vice versa? You know, I don't advise it for a lot of people because you want that security of a deal. But if you trust yourself and if you are a draw, then it's, you know, and you're in a division where a lot of the big fights are with fighters that are on different platforms. Being a free agent would actually allow you to follow the guys. I mean, you know, again, DAZN have invested a lot of money in Devin Haney. They want him to fight on DAZN against Teofimo. But really, and that's where we put the pressure on Lopez now. Because you say, there's your money if you want it, and there's a lot of it to fight on DAZN. Or if not, we'll just do it with ESPN. So just let us know which one you want to do, mate.
And speaking of Haney, where's Ryan Garcia? Is he on your radar at all?
He was. I mean, you know, we hope he gets well soon and he returns to the ring, but he should have boxed Devin Haney before. And like I said, no one really questioned that decision.
Right, yeah.
He fought a final eliminator to become the mandatory for Devin Haney. And when he became the mandatory, he basically told the WBC, I'm not going to fight him, which baffled me. You know, he said, no, I want the bigger fights. I want Pacquiao and I want Tank. Okay, well, they didn't happen, so why not fight? And then he fights Fortuna, right? I mean, that's not an easy fight. But for no
But it
money
wasn't-
really,
it wasn't
in
Haney,
comparison to the Haney fight.
Yeah,
People
sure.
just realise Devin Haney's really good. And although I feel like there's a mountain out of a molehill with this 10th round like conspiracy tonight, hopefully it will make people like Ryan Garcia go, okay, well I think I punch as hard as Jorge Linares or maybe harder.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it.
I'll fight.
Yeah.
But he's really difficult to beat. Devin, really difficult to beat.
Yeah.
Eddie, you're
Thank you.
mentioning this situation with AJ, and clearly he's a little bit chafed about what the WBO is sticking down his throat. But you've only got like 3 or 4 days, right, to commit to.
I think we've got 4 days till first bids.
You think
are
that?
called.
You think it'll?
So it'll be another 7 days after that.
Okay. So you
till
think
first
you
bids.
think everything will be okay, and that they'll?
Yeah, I mean, we'll either make a deal or we'll vacate. I mean, we won't be going to purse bids or anything like that, mucking around. So, by the way, I don't blame the WBO. They were actually quite generous to us with our time. I mean, let's be honest, it dragged on a lot, didn't it? You know, but so I have to take my hat off to Paco Valverde because he did put his neck on the line to allow that fight when Usyk had a strong case for it not to be allowed. But when the time came, he had to do what he had to do. So I'm not annoyed with the WBO. I'm just annoyed that it seems that basically AJ's told who he's got to fight every single time, you know. But that's the problem of having 3 or 4 belts. You know, it's just how it is.
What's the actual date, Eddie, that you had? What is it, June what?
It was 10 days from last Saturday. So we've got 3 days left or something like that. Yeah. And then they'll call first bids. But I do think where we are with negotiations, we would probably say to the WBO, if there's no deal by Monday or Tuesday, could we have another week? Like if both teams say that, and they'll give you more time.
Right.
You know.
Eddie, how tough of a fight do you think Usyk is for AJ? And has he talked about it too? Has he assessed the challenge with you at all?
He loves challenges, and he loves fighting good fighters. And he thinks Usyk is a really good fighter. He's a pound for pound top fighter. He's the undisputed cruiserweight world champion. You know, some say he hasn't looked sensational at heavyweight, but he's probably going to get better at heavyweight as he gets more used to the weight and more used to the division. So I think it's a really, really dangerous fight, a very tricky fight. And I think AJ's got to go in there and be completely ruthless in that fight. You know, AJ loves to learn, he loves to box with good boxers, but you don't really want to go in there and start mucking around and boxing with Alexander Usyk. You want to go in there, cut off the ring and beat him up and get him out of there. And that's what I think the game plan would be.
Like Chisora attempted
Like
it.
Chisora, but with better speed and better footwork and more combinations. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to go in there with the mindset that Chisora had.
Would it be disheartening for him to have come this far, collecting these titles, this close to being undisputed, and then if you vacate the WBO, you know, would that not be?
Yeah, it would be, but
yeah.
I kind of think he's not given up on the undisputed, but I think he's lost faith in that fight. So again, like it just baffles me that Top Rank haven't come on and gone. You know, I mean, you've got those, you know, our contacts and partners in Saudi Arabia who, you know, have a right to be furious, as we are, who want to know what's happening and would move forward with the fight in December. But there's not even any conversations about that. It's really weird. Like if you feel you got fucked on this arbitration, the first thing you would do is go, I can't believe it, we've got to do this, but let's make the fight for December now and lock it in. And then, but it's not even a conversation about it.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, AJ feels that Fury don't want to fight. I'm actually not sure about that. Like, I think Fury does want to fight. But I just feel that it's just about control, you know. And I think when certain people feel like they lose control, it gives them sleepless nights. And in this instance, they have control. They promote a fight in the US, you know, on their platform as the lead promoter. You know, they went out and done it. And I don't know, but is the fight happening on July 24th? I don't know. I mean,
Well, if it does happen, do you think Fury, are you safe to say he wins again?
yeah, I think so. But anything can happen. I mean, I think Wilder is so limited, but hits very hard. and he's always live, and can beat anyone for the fact that he has tremendous power. But he's so limited, so limited. And I think his confidence must be absolutely shot to pieces, because he came out with 642 excuses of why he lost the second fight. He now has a completely different training team, and I don't know what's going through his head. But, you know, listen, Fury made, I don't know if you saw John Fury's interview yesterday, it was quite good, where he sort of said, it's very difficult, you've been training for an AJ fight, and then all of a sudden, you're told in 8 weeks you're fighting this other person that you actually don't want to fight, you've already beat twice. And we made that mistake out of Haney because AJ wanted to tear Jarrell Miller to pieces, and then when it all fell through, I think we felt that he was invincible at that stage, and you know, we looked at the options, we all agreed Andy Ruiz, great fight, let's do it. And it was 3.5 weeks, and we switched to sparring, and when I look back now I think, I can't believe we did that, you know. Whereas now, the good thing AJ's learned from that is when the Fury fight fell through, rather than making a fight again, you know, for end of July or early August, he just wanted a couple of weeks to just reset mentally and reset Cam, because you've gone from this 6'9" orthodox guy who's, you know, running around everywhere, to a 6'1" southpaw in Usyk that boxes in a completely different style. So that's why the fight will happen a little bit later, probably back end of August or early September, because he says, no, this is a serious fight. I'm not taking this fight and fucking it up. I'm going to make sure I prepare properly for this fight. So it's, you know, whereas Fury's just gone crash bang wallop straight in, and you know, it's just, it all seems to be happening too quickly.
Eddie, you don't think there's any chance that you come back to Joshua with the winner of Wilder Fury, and he goes, "Nah, to hell with it. I don't even want to hear it anymore." Okay.
Could you imagine a
Thanks, Eddie.
scenario that the undisputed fight is Wilder versus Usyk?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Never know. Stranger things have happened, you know. Both guys can win that fight. You know, Usyk can win. Wilder can win. But I do feel like AJ and Fury are heavy favourites in this fight.
What would Usyk fight will be in the UK,
Yeah.
for sure?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be opened up fully, you think? By
Yes,
then?
I think so.
If not the winner of Wilder Fury, like what would be the biggest fight for AJ?
If he beats Usyk,
Yeah.
I still think the Andy Ruiz 3 fight is a big fight in America. Dillian White's a huge fight in the UK. There's not a lot more to do, you know. But I think that's why he places so much importance on the undisputed fight. All right, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie, appreciate it.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks, thank you.
Yeah. I know, $500. Can't believe it. And if I would have given him the opportunity to get out, like, for the last 3 months, he would have taken, he probably would have paid that 400 500 to get out.
Give me a second.
But I was so confident, and he kept messaging me at times going, oh, I said, trust me, it's done, it's happening. And it was like, all right, yeah, good, you? Oh, thank you, mate, cheers.
Thank you, Chief.
Do you, with anything else, do you
Plus 240.
So show me where you saw that. Show me where you see that.
Huh?
Show me where you saw that.
When I casted, when I
I saw.